You are watching and listening to the Electronic Intifada. I am Jon Elmer. This is the Resistance Report for day 685 of Israel's criminal genocide. I am reporting this on the 21st of August. We will start with the maps because we are going to take a look today all across Gaza. You can see these are still the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs mapping that were used. The purple is the shoot to kill zones. The white areas are the areas where people are living in tents. And some buildings remain in Dar al-Bala in the middle camps area. And of course, Israel is planning on invading Gaza City as part of this expanding Operation Gideon's Chariots. They couldn't decide on the name because previous weeks, as listeners and watchers of this program know, we quoted many times Israeli military officials saying that Gideon's Chariots operation that began on May 19th was over. But now they just decided last night that they're going to be calling the Gaza City invasion Gideon's Chariots B, Part B. So what we have been watching for the last 3 months, I guess, is Gideon Chariots A. So the Israeli military released some figures about that operation just yesterday. The operation that effectively began in March when Israel reneged on the ceasefire agreement that was guaranteed by the United States, Egypt, and Qatar. Israel reneged on the agreement, which was a multi-phased agreement, and Israel pulled out of that, leaving their captives in Gaza, who they have repeatedly proven don't matter at all. And this Gaza City invasion will be the final straw of that for those captives. But Israel has not achieved any of its military goals in Gaza that were clearly articulated. Return the captives through violence, destroy the Qassam brigades, destroy the government capacity in the Gaza Strip, and make Gaza no longer a threat. Those were their stated goals of the war, and they've achieved none of them. And so they're just continuing to fight. And this plan for Gaza City involved the call up of 130,000 reservists to fight. There's talk of it being a 14 brigade combat operation, which is a significant operation, upwards of 5 divisions participating in the battle in Gaza City. And based on the notices that were given out to soldiers for the reservists, some of them went out this week. That operation will begin. It was supposed to begin. It was planned to begin October 7th, but Netanyahu's trying to push that date up. The reservists are going to be called in 3 waves that begin at the beginning of September. So we'll have to track how that goes. Looking at this map, just to say, the purple is the shoot to kill zone. It's not the zone that Israel controls, because when they were bragging about this, they released a statement the other day that talked about there has been 10,000 airstrikes by the Israeli Air Force jets, helicopters, and drones since March 18th, since they collapsed the ceasefire. 10,000 airstrikes. The Gaza Health Ministry in that period of time has said that upwards of 11,000 Palestinians have been killed in that period. And Israel says Gideon's Chariots' goal was to capture 75% of the Gaza Strip. That is simply an absurd and not serious statistic. And the blue area, the purple area on this map, is not Israeli control. They do not have operational control in those areas, as we're going to see today on the program. But there's nothing like that. They largely withdrew from Beit Lahia. People went back to Beit Lahia this week and saw, for example, Kamal Adwan Hospital completely destroyed. People yesterday managed to get back into the Tufa neighborhood in Gaza City, in eastern Gaza City. And the mass area of Khan Younis that you see down at the bottom of that map is not controlled by the Israelis. They're operating mainly within the two corridors that they created. We will show a closer map when we get to that point. But just wanted to say 10,000 airstrikes, that's what the Israelis are talking about, and that is how their field reports read. They're very, very proud of that. But of course, as Nora reported, and we've reported on this show a number of times, the Israelis are also using all kinds of other weaponry. Artillery doesn't count in those. Tank fire doesn't count in those. And they're using the M113 robot vehicle-borne IEDs, creating essentially a tank car bomb that they've been using in increasing numbers, particularly over the last week or two. Maybe we'll get into those and how they work on a future show, but today's show's packed, so we will move forward with that. We're going to start in the north, so we take a look at this northern Gaza map that was this is an Electronic Intifada original. Thanks to Maxwell for these maps. They've been useful throughout the whole war. You can see the Netzarim corridor there, and you can see the Zetun neighborhood. It abuts the Netzarim corridor, and that has been the target of a surprise operation this week. It was unannounced operation. The Israeli military didn't say it was happening until 6 days into the operation, but immediately we saw the resistance hit them as soon as they came into that neighborhood. And in terms of the reservists, the call up is right now, the immediate call up is 60,000 reservists. That will add to and create 130,000 called up for this operation. Like I said, 12 to 14 brigade level teams to participate in the Gaza invasion. This Zetun operation is not directly connected to that Gaza City invasion, but it's a preliminary operation that is a 2-brigade operation in Zetun, destroying hundreds of buildings. And the shortage of fighters, which we've been talking about on this show for months now, and the Israeli media talks about every day, particularly Army radio is very attuned to this, with the soldiers all constantly complaining about being overworked. I'm going to read you just word for word an Army radio report from Monday morning. Due to the shortages of soldiers, the IDF is considering reaching out to Jewish communities in the diaspora to encourage and recruit Jewish youths from abroad to its ranks. The shortage of soldiers, estimated to be around 12,000 missing from the IDF ranks, and the non-enlistment of the ultra-Orthodox are leading the army to try to exhaust every other possibility to replenish its ranks. This morning, we published, this is Army Radio, word for word, that the IDF intends to approach the large Jewish communities in the diaspora, aiming to encourage recruitment of Jewish youth of enlistment age who will come to the country for a few years to serve in the IDF. According to the work done by the Personnel Directorate on the subject, the recruitment potential among 18 to 25-year-olds in large Jewish communities is more than 10,000. So that can find their they can replace their killed and seriously wounded soldiers that have been taken off the battlefield, in the number about 10,000. Senior IDF officials tell us at Army Radio the target we intend to set is an increase of about 600 to 700 additional soldiers each year from Jewish communities abroad. The main communities that effort will focus on are the United States and France. And I'm reporting this from Canada and can almost assure you Canada will be involved in those too. So looking at this map that we have on screen here, we're going to be focusing today on Zetun. We're going to show operations from Shujaiya and Tufa, as well as Jabalia. And the Jabalia camp is to the north of Jabalia there, and Beit Lahia is in the upper left corner, across from adjacent to Beit Hanun, which has been turned into a moonscape. And the invasion of Gaza City is unclear exactly how this operation will take place. When it took place the first time, Israel said that they conquered Gaza and had operational control of it back in 2023 and early 2024. The attack came from the south. They came along the corridor and up through Tel El Hawa, and also came down the coast on the western coast side from Beit Lahia down through into the beach refugee camp. And the Shati camp is the beach refugee camp. Shati put up significant resistance and held back the Israelis on their push into Gaza City. They did that with 3 full divisions at that time, and they believe they need more than that because people are not taking their call-up orders. We know from the beginning of Gideon's Chariots that at one point, Army radio was reporting on missing soldiers numbering more than half of who were supposed to come back. So we're going to start in Zetun because that's where this operation began this week. You're seeing here a Nukba commander. He is setting up this operation saying that this comes in light of the escalating threats of the enemy towards our people and our beloved territory. We tell them slowly and clearly, you need to understand we are here. We are in front of you, behind you, and everywhere. And what we're looking at here is these soldiers, the Nukba force has surveillance cameras. They have maps. They have drone footage that you can see that's overlaid on top. And this is a surprise operation. And they're showing you now an Israeli position under, they've got the 2 armored troop carriers there. And the commander says that we know this battle is difficult. Here you can see the troop leading procedures. They have each hill marked out on the target buildings. You can see where the Yassin archers are going to be positioned, 1 with a thermobaric warhead to hit the troops, 2 with Yassin 105s for the Namr troop carriers, and also the guerrilla action devices that they are going to take and hand deliver to the Namr troop carriers that you see there. This is one of 14 operations in Zetun this week, targeting with Yassins, 10 IEDs, and 12 artillery ops. So high quality operations immediately greeting the invasion. And this is a Nukba force, the elite commando force of the Qassam brigades. You can see they're on top of a massive map there with detail. So they're matching the layers, the surveillance, the mapping, the troop leading procedures, the predicting of Israeli positions. They have guessed right that the Israelis will take up this building. And as you'll see in the videos that come up, there's not very many other buildings. But then they also successfully predict the route that the Israelis will withdraw from, and they have Yassin archers on the reinforcements. So just a remarkably detailed operation that we've been seeing all throughout the war. But this one in Zetun is remarkable because the Israelis, this is a secret invasion. They didn't announce it. And this operation is 24 hours after the Israelis entered Zetun. So let's take a look at number 3, because there's a detail here that I've been tracking, and I promised you I'd keep my eye on this. And if you look in the upper right corner there, you see the 2 guerrilla action devices. They're called the Bark, the lightning bolt. They are a small Shuad, a lighter Shuad that could be carried easier, that could be thrown. This is an adaptation that Qassam has made manufacturing in the field. I pointed it out to you guys in Jabalia when we first saw it. We saw it from the drone footage when the fighter ran up and threw it on top of the Merkava tank in Jabalia. Then we saw it in Khan Younis, where it was thrown into the hatch after the fighter climbed up on the top of the Namr troop carrier and put it into the hatch. So we're seeing a new weapon here, because this is now in Zetun. So now we're seeing them now across Gaza. These weapons didn't exist before. They didn't exist in this battle or before. And the canisters that you're looking at there on the right-hand side of the screen, those are not the same size canisters as any previous Shawad. The explosively formed penetrator that the Qassam Brigades builds has had a number of iterations, like a dozen of them over the years, going back to 2006, where they've been perfecting the weapon. And none of the canisters of any other versions match that. So we're looking at manufacturing canisters in Gaza right now, filling them presumably with unexploded Israeli ordnance, and deploying them on the battlefield, because the fighters realized that there was a gap in that they were able to get up close to these armored vehicles, and they were routinely seeing them with the hatch open. And this weapon is lighter, easier to carry. A fighter can carry two of them, and they can throw them. So they can throw them up onto the top of the tank. And this is an issue in Israel because there is a heat wave in Gaza right now. And Israel 𝐓𝐿 reported in the paper yesterday, they had a piece on 𝐓𝐸R troop carriers' air conditioning failures. The air conditioning failures meant that the cooling system in the 𝐓𝐸R failed, and the interior temperature can reach 60 degrees or 140 degrees Fahrenheit. So the soldiers pop the hatches open. I mean, we've seen them pop the hatches in the winter too. But yeah, so 𝐓𝐿 has adapted to the battlefield conditions and manufactured a new weapon in the course of the war. The 𝐓𝐸R troop carriers, it was said by the IDF directorate, weapons directorate yesterday, that these vehicles, the tanks and the armored personnel carriers, have clocked 1 million kilometers of service inside the Gaza Strip in the past 2 years. So it's a malfunction of the air conditioners that creates a situation for these weapons to be used. And they quote an officer in the field: "Forces in the field have an impossible decision: disable a vehicle and halt operations due to logistical challenges, or operate against guidelines. Many commanders choose to proceed with operations despite the challenging and the danger." This officer says, "We're not allowed to enter buildings because they're booby-trapped, and we can't enter the APCs because the systems don't work. So what are we supposed to do?" The officer asks. "We're not asking for luxuries, but these are basic needs for fighting in the summer." And I wanted to put this in because this points to the fact that their machinery, if they were not being constantly resupplied by the Americans every single day virtually, that this war could straight up not happen. Because when those vehicles are taken off the field for whatever reason, because they're destroyed by the resistance, mobility killed by the resistance, or their air conditioners don't work, they are taken off the battlefield. And if they cannot be replaced by American shipments, this genocide would not continue. And so I just wanted to make that point. Let's look at the execution of this Zetun operation, because this is all one video. I just chopped it up so that we could understand it better. So there's the two guerrilla action devices, and you can see the Yasin 105 there. There you can see the Yasin 105 thermobaric warhead. This fighter here in his 𝐓𝐿 shirt is going to have the two guerrilla action devices. And just like we saw on the piece of paper in the troop leading procedures, these fighters are advancing from these mounds. They know the way to go to get to this building using the mounds. And now we're going to see him right under, in those windows up there are two Israeli soldiers, both on scope. They're both on their gun, and this fighter is climbed right up. They apparently don't see him until maybe this moment when one of the soldiers pulls back. But there's the thermobaric warhead. There's the detonation of the guerrilla action device, the BARC, exploding on the 𝐓𝐸R troop carrier underneath the eyes of the soldiers. And this operation has been planned so well that the second force comes in. So we're going to see this here one more time. You watch the way that they move from hill to hill as they go here, from undercover. Now they're going to move to the first block. And these are all planned in this operation 24 hours after the Israelis arrived there. And this is a Nukba elite commando operation. So they've predicted which building is going to be used, which, look at the landscape. It's not that hard to pick which building is going to be used, but they guessed right. And they were prepared for this operation to hit the Israelis, as there's the two soldiers in the window looking out, and the fighter is right underneath the window, ready to throw his device. He's going to try to throw it into the 𝐓𝐸R troop carrier through the open hole. You can see it there. It detonates. You could see the thermobaric warhead on the Yasin be pulled up into position to fire. And we can go to the next one after this, number five. Yeah, this is a continuation. There you see on the left side, there's the archer, Yasin archer, who's ready for reinforcements. He's providing cover. There's the fighters withdrawing. So they have the 𝐓𝐿 unit that is was has covering fire support for that squad to withdraw, and now these two guys are heading out to hit the reinforcements, predicting that the reinforcements will come on these two routes. And there he fires, and on this one you'll see as well, this is the fighter is right beside the tank inside the house. If you look in the upper left, you'll see that was the first Yassin strike. And then this guy, you can see the tank helmet pointing out of the tank. He ducks down, but this fighter is spitting distance from the tank and blasts it directly through what would be the front door of the house, if that was there. We can go to the next clip. It's the same one, to focus on this operation because it's pretty remarkable. He fires this one, and he looks like he hits the active protection system directly. He's aiming for the turret gap, which we've talked about all war, the weakest spot on the vehicle. But he fires in there, and you can see that tank comes along a route that was predicted, and the fighter is in that position ahead of time, ready. So really well organized operation, command and control, dozen fighters participating, Nukba commandos, and right away, as soon as the Israelis arrive in Zetun, there hasn't been a formal operation in Zetun since before the ceasefire. So you're going back to 2024, but these fighters are in their positions ready to fight at any point. And so the first day that the Israelis roll in, the resistance is able to meet them. And we've seen that in every single location, because the resistance is organized in territorial defenses. And that's a really good example of it here in Zetun. The next one, number 7, we're on now. Here's a return to sender operation, rewiring a Mark 80 series bomb. It's tough to tell exactly if that's a 2,000 pound, might be a 1,000 pound bomb. Repurposing it here and detonating it against Israeli armored vehicles. Possibly it was a bulldozer, but a bulldozer was definitely hit in one of these operations, because you're going to see after this significant explosion, because that's the bomb that the Israelis drop from the sky. That's how they get death tolls of 100,000 suspected, at least. There's the D9 being towed away. And then there's one more, another operation here, just a Yassin strike against a tank that is also part of this Zetun operation. The Zetun operation began on Wednesday, and we have since then 14 Yassin strikes, 10 IEDs versus armored vehicles, and 11 artillery strikes just in that first days of the Zetun operation. We are going to go to Khan Younis next, because we also have an active operation in Khan Younis. I'm going to show you this map. You can see the Moreg route there. You don't see the Magan Oz corridor, but it comes along and meets around Salahdin Road that you can see running up, running from the south to the north. The corridor, the Magan Oz corridor, cuts eastern Khan Younis from western Khan Younis. And that's where this attack took place yesterday. The second capture operation attempt along these corridors. Previously on the Moreg corridor a couple weeks ago, I reported on the 12 fighters that came out of a tunnel and attempted to capture Israeli soldiers. The drones came and the fighters withdrew back down into the tunnel. All of them survived, returned to their base safely. And now we have an operation that was yesterday that was at least 20 fighters, a platoon-sized unit coming out in 3 waves to capture Israeli soldiers on the Magan Oz corridor. And these corridors are the corridors that Netanyahu said were existential to Israel's survival, these corridors. This is a base that has hit a forward operating base for the Israelis that was only established a couple of weeks ago. The 20-man platoon size unit, as I said, the fighters emerged from a tunnel 50 meters from the IDF forward base that was established a couple weeks ago. One unit goes, raids the base where the soldiers are sleeping. A second unit provides cover along the berms around the outside of the base. And a third team is an artillery team that will allow for the safe withdrawal of the troops. This is the Army radio report of the Israeli investigation into the attack. The attack was carried out by a squad of up to 20 fighters. They don't know. The reason why they don't know how many fighters there was, because as soon as the operation began, as soon as the fighters came out of the tunnel, they fired on the surveillance camera that they knew was there and took down Israel's surveillance camera. So the Israelis don't actually know any of these hard numbers, because the battle began before anyone had footage of what was happening, and a certain number of the fighters withdrew. So the position was on, as I said, the Magan Oz corridor or Western Khan Younis. The fighters emerged from a tunnel shaft 40 to 50 meters from the defensive position and split into three groups, says Army Radio. Beginning of the attack, the fighters fired at the observation camera and hit it. So the observation was less effective, and the Israeli soldiers only discovered the infiltration after the Qassam fighters were inside the Israeli base, and they have no idea. The fighters had tactical vests, Yassins, Shawads, guerrilla action devices, breaching charges to get into the building, and they were carrying stretchers, according to Army Radio, to return captured soldiers. And I said the IDF doesn't know how many were involved in the operation, because some withdrew before the Israelis even showed up. And this battle would have been a mess for the Israelis, but they got air support just in time to prevent the full unit from being wiped out and the soldiers from being captured. That is just out this morning. I think we'll see if Qassam had cameras on that operation. We'll track this operation coming up and try to show you some visuals in the coming weeks on the show. But there was also a fresh operation in Khan Younis this week, number 10. 13 artillery operations and 5 qualitative operations in Khan Younis this week. So we can go to video number 10. Thank you. This is the stones of David's. This is David's stones. This is the defensive operation against Gideon's chariots. Here we have the fighter. He's quoting Muhammad al-Daif, the chief of staff of the Qassam Brigade, saying, "We are here. I'm rooted in this land, and in it are thousands of seeds. No matter how the tyrants try to uproot us, the seeds will sprout. We will continue on this path, and we will not stop." You can see the fighters in tactical vests, and while they're talking here, the one fighter says, "No, look out the window! Look out the window! There's a D9," and they show that they're just right under the noses of these Israeli troops. And then you're going to see here an elevated Yassin strike targeting a tank that's behind that berm there, that you can see at the top of the screen. Again, if you're not watching these videos, everything around is completely destroyed. The buildings that are standing look like they could be pushed over by hand. But this operation is, you're going to see here, the Sadmia. This is a shock device detonate. It's going to blow the camera out of the cameraman's hands there. So we have a Yassin strike against the tank. Then we have the IED against the tank. Now we're watching the Yassin Archer reload and fire. And now we're going to watch them get away. And as they're going away, this fighter, masked fighter, says, "The men of Qassam, the men of God, we are giants on the battlefield. We are only a few meters away from them, and we're going to show you." And they carried out the off. At the end, the masked fighter here is saying, "We say to the entire Islamic nation, God will not forgive those who abandon us, will not forgive those who left Gaza alone." Fighters on the front lines in Khan Younis, able to carry out these operations. There's no operational control in Khan Younis. Next one is number 11. This is 2 Yassin strikes versus the same Namr troop carrier. You're going to see 2 fighters here, one with a camera. Again, part of the difficulty of getting to them is getting through all the destruction. But there you see in the distance the 2 Namr troop carriers with their rear door facing the weakest point of the vehicle, fires direct hit. You see it from 2 cameras because the 2 fighters have 2 cameras. Now they're going to go back behind cover here and they're going to reload. You can see how easy it is to reload and put the rocket motor in to these Yassins, which have made them such a an appropriate weapon for this battle. And again, just look at the destruction. There's just random pieces that were houses, just the uprights and supports of the buildings sitting there with the rebar sticking out. All of the buildings collapsed because when Israel failed at their military objectives, they have gone straight ahead on their objectives of making Gaza unlivable. So they're not going to win the war, but they're going to carry out this genocide that we've been watching in horror now for 685 days, because it began immediately on October 7th with serious attacks. Number 12 here. This is an interesting operation, artillery operation in Khan Younis. You can see the fighters again, detailed maps. We're going to see in this one the use of drone footage to see where these land. A lot of times these operations, we don't get to see where the mortars land, but we know there's injuries from them. The Israelis admit to those from time to time. But here we can see an Israeli base. You can see the triangle. That's over a tank there. And that's a set of buildings that Israel has left. There's a moonscape around it, but there's 3 or 4 clustered buildings there that the Israelis are using as a base. And you can see by that footage, the drone footage, that those strikes are landing right inside the base. They're landing within feet with heavy mortars, 120 millimeter mortars, landing within feet of armored vehicles and Israeli troop positions. And these are joint operations that you're seeing happening here. So you see them tie their headbands. This is 𝐓𝐡𝐞 𝐄𝐥𝐞𝐜 and the Qassam brigades. You're also going to see the Nasser Salahuddin Popular Resistance Committees in these operations multiple times. And these operations, there's the Nasser Salahuddin brigades, Popular Resistance Committees. These are 60 millimeter, 80 millimeter, and 120 millimeter mortars. Qassam has made these mortars since the disengagement. Even before that, they used them against the settlements inside Gaza. And these are Rajum 114 millimeters. These are also Qassam built rocket artillery system that you won't see anywhere else in the world. Now we're going to go back up north. So we'll take a quick look at that map again. So now we're going up the 𝐓𝐡𝐞 on the eastern side of Gaza City. Operational security had them hold back these videos, but they were released. These are from Gideon's chariots. But so they weren't from this week, but the videos were released this week. So let's take a look at them. Number 14 we are at right now. The fighter says that we are the 𝐓𝐡𝐞 battalion and we are advancing on this Israeli position. You can see the fighters are ready. They've been ready in this position there. That is an Israeli position that you're looking at in that building. And here they're going to fire F7 North Korean fragmentation warheads that we've seen throughout the war, and anti-tank warheads. There's a FN mag machine gun possibly captured from the Israelis. There were FN mags in Gaza before the war, but we know that they've also captured them in the war. And again, this fighter's denoting that he's the 𝐓𝐡𝐞 battalion. And we're going to see here, we're going to see these strikes. We're going to see these again after as well, because I want to put the audio in so you could see, because these are 4 strikes hitting the tank and the D9 in here. Here's one against the tank. You can clearly see a direct hit. We're seeing that from multiple cameras. Again, you can see how easy it is to reload the Yasin, and he can move up here. And this is going to be against a D9 armored bulldozer. He's going to get a direct hit on the side cage. If that's not an automatic, and there's an armored troop carrier, that's going to be the final Yasin strike of this set of operations. But this next one has audio in, because I want you to hear the 4 Yasin strikes on the 2 vehicles, one after another. So just pretty remarkable timing and planning of that operation to make, that would make a mess of that D9. And you could see it burning with the first strike before it gets hit with the second strike. So again, organized operations. Let's look at number 16. This 16 took a bit of editing. This is a Dragunov SVD, Iranian SVD sniper operation. You can see the soldiers on the back of the tank there. I had to edit out the shooting, but you can see it creates a cook-off, hits the ammunition on the back of the Merkava tank there and creates a cook-off. So the ammo is burning. Maybe Tamara can throw my Twitter handle underneath there. All the uncensored videos are all archived on my Twitter handle. And the next one is also, if we go to 17, this is also had to be edited because this is a direct hit on a tank commander who's coming out of the top of his hatch on his Merkava tank, and he was hit as well. So you can see the full video of that. That was just a short shot. So that's 17. So 18, we're at 18. One more here. You can see the soldier, his helmet there with the triangle. And then we have to match community guidelines for YouTube. He just disappears there. But you can imagine why he disappeared. And you can watch the full uncensored video on my X account. So one more here. We have 19. 𝐓𝐴 𝐤𝐿 put together a mixtape of their return to sender operations. You can see there's 𝐓𝐡𝐞, their EFP. There's the anti-tank mines. There is the unexploded Israeli US supplied Israeli airdropped bomb. That's the 𝐓𝐡𝐞, the EFP. The fighter says, don't worry about your planes. And this is interesting here because this is actually Trevor Ball identified this as actually an illumination round. So what they got this round that unexploded, but it's just for illumination. So 𝐓𝐴 𝐤𝐿 has emptied the illumination filler in the weapon and refilled it with unexploded ordnance. So turned an illumination shell into an IED, back into an artillery shell. So this mixtape is showing the various operations that took place by 𝐓𝐴 𝐤𝐿 in Shujaiya neighborhood. And there's the Mark 84 2,000-pound bomb. We saw that before, but they harvested it, and these detonations. This is kind of a best of that they're showing us here. And at the end of this video, you're going to see the M113 robot truck bombs, tank bombs that the Israelis have been using. Again, so this is from Shujaiya. This would be from July. There's the tank operation that we saw in July as well, but they put this together with some new operations to show us the battle, the third battle of Shujaiya that took place during Gideon's chariots, which is David's stones for the Palestinians. There you see the M113. That's what happens to the M113 after it's detonated. And they also show tracks from other vehicles that the resistance has destroyed. But the Israelis are using these robot bombs all over Gaza right now at really high frequency. There's only 4,000 of them that exist in their stores. The Americans gave them to them, and they are too thin for the modern battlefield. There's tracks from a different vehicle that was struck. So the M113s have been just turned into bombs, and they create massive explosions that take out whole blocks because they can be filled with explosives. So they become a much larger vessel to carry explosives than the bombs. There you see pieces of a bulldozer from the spoils of war, the leftovers that the Israelis didn't take, which we've seen them usually take. They drag the vehicles all the way home back to Israel. There's the inside of the M113 just completely emptied out after those blasts. So that is Shujaiya. Let's move to Jabalia. Just a couple quick ones from Jabalia. Here we have a fighter. This is also from Gideon's chariots, David Stone's defense. So this is from weeks past, probably late July. These operations were executed. You can see the fighter mouse hole there. Now we see a Namur troop carrier. The troop carrier parks right outside the house, and there's a soldier that I've blurred out there. He exits. There's the 3 soldiers exiting out the back of the Namur troop carrier with the triangles. There's their sort of sloppy stack as they're about to enter this building. And the 𝐶assam brigades have mouse holed. Right here, you can see a shawad through that mouse hole directly at those soldiers. So that is a devastating operation. The next one, and then they return to their base safely. Here we see them packing a shawad. Haven't seen this too often, but you can see 𝐶assam packing this shawad and wiring it up during this operation. This is going to be targeting a D9 armored bulldozer. And one interesting thing about this is look at how many pressure plates they brought. Usually we see Saraya use 1 pressure plate, but 𝐶assam is using here 3 or 4 pressure plates. So to increase the area that they cover for the vehicle to hit. So that's an interesting development that we are seeing here from 𝐶assam that we don't usually see, using multiple to create the minefield. So there's multiple places to trip the minefield when they're burying these. And they're burying these EFPs, and now they're showing the destruction of the D9 bulldozer. You could see the tracks from the vehicle and the what's it called? The shovel, the trowel, the shovel of the bulldozer there, like much bigger than a human. So operations in 𝐄𝐥𝐞𝐄𝐿, successful operations in Jabalia, and these are held back because of operational security reasons. You know, the Zetun video, we saw it pretty much the next day. The Younis one was also from the next day. And then just one more here. We have 𝐓𝐡𝐞 𝐄𝐥𝐞𝐜 Central Brigade. I just wanted to bring this one into you because, actually, this is the last one in Jabalia. These are Iranian heavy mortars being fired in the battle in Jabalia. The one that comes up next is 𝐓𝐡𝐞 𝐄𝐥𝐞𝐜 in the central, in the middle camps. And I brought this one just because now this is every brigade fighting. So we saw from the far north to Gaza City. This is the middle camps, and we saw Khan Younis. Rafah is completely ethnically cleansed and is a collaborator colony right now. No operations there, although there were mortar operations targeting Israeli positions in those areas. So you can see Saraya still has the ability to launch these rockets 685 days into the war. And we saw 𝐓𝐡𝐞 𝐄𝐥𝐞𝐜 on last week's show. They had the rockets marked with manufactured in 2025. So they wanted you to see that they're manufacturing rockets at the moment. So pretty packed week for the resistance report and resistance operations heading into this brutal battle in Gaza City that Israel wants to ethnically cleanse 1 million people from Gaza City. No signs in any way, a sign of the resistance not being ready for what the Israelis have in store, because we're seeing it all across Gaza in stark relief this week. So that is the resistance report for day 685 of Israel's criminal genocidal war in Gaza.